This is Lucifera.
And this is Entropy. Hello again. Today we are going to continue our discussion of the book, The Secret Book of John. And we're going to just dive right into it with the introduction. Starting with the first section of the introduction, I will be reading it and then we will be discussing it. And of course, we're both looking forward to your comments as well about the book. So, introduction. The Secret Book of John is the most significant and influential text of the ancient Gnostic religion. Written in Greek during the early 2nd century CE by an unknown author, the Secret Book of John became the source of a host of other Gnostic texts, myths, and cosmic systems. In Greek, its title is Apocryphon Johannes and is known in scholarship as the Apocryphon of John. The word apocryphon means secret or hidden. The Secret Book of John tells the story of a de-evolution of God from perfect oneness to imprisonment in this material world. If you look at some of the sections, it is Christian, and others, the version of Platonic philosophy. Frequently, it's book of Jewish commentary on Moses' Torah. It is also these things in ways that the authors of Orthodoxy in Christianity, Platonism, and Judaism totally rejected. It is a foundation of something else, something supported by the historical tripod of Christianity, Platonism, and Judaism, but it is none of those. It is the expression of a whole new point of view, new in its own time and new in our time, for the full version of the Secret Book of John was only discovered recently, although its existence was known long before. Around 180 CE, the Bishop Elian, a man named Irenaeus, decided to write a book attacking all forms of Christianity he knew of that differed from the form of which he approved. All other forms were, in his mind, heresies, and most fit for the very broad, ill-defined category of religion we call Gnosticism. His 5-volume book, entitled Against Heresies, takes a violently negative view of its subjects. Fortunately, Irenaeus describes in considerable detail what he despises. In chapter 29 of his first volume, Irenaeus outlines some sections of the Secret Book of John in detail. This tells us the Secret Book of John must have been written well before 180 CE, although not in the exact form we have it now. And we know that its circulation included Gaul, today's France, in order for Irenaeus to have read it. In Cairo in 1896, German scholar Karl Reinhold bought an ancient book written in Coptic, the ancient Egyptian language written mainly in Greek letters. That book, which is now known as the Berlin Gnostic Codex, turned out to contain 3 important Gnostic writings: the Gospel of Mary, the Secret Book of John, and the Wisdom of Jesus Christ. Because of the 2 world wars, these texts were not made generally available until 1950s. By that time, an even more important discovery had been made. In Nag Hammadi, Egypt, in 1945, local workers stumbled upon a very large jar in which was hidden 13 books containing a total of 52 documents of ancient Gnostic wisdom. Some were very badly damaged, some were slightly damaged, and some remain in excellent condition. For the study of early Christianity and its unorthodox forms, and probably also in its orthodox forms, this was the most important manuscript discovery ever made. The document that appears most frequently in the Nag Hammadi collection is the Secret Book of John. 3 copies were found there. No other text is found more than twice. In all 3 cases, the Secret Book of John is the first document bound into its volume. Book 2, the Nag Hammadi Library, begins with the Secret Book of John, which is then followed by the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the four other texts. Book 3 begins with the secret book of John, followed by the Gospel of Egyptians, earlier and later versions of the wisdom of Jesus Christ, and finally the dialogue of the Savior. Book 4 starts with the secret book of John, which is followed by the Gospel of the Egyptians. This prominent placement clearly shows that the secret book of John provided the context in which much of the Nag Hammadi library was read. For example, people who read Book 2 read the Gospel of Thomas in light of what they had completed, the secret book of John. By contrast, today, most people who read and study the Gospel of Thomas do so with the canonical Gospels in mind. Ancient books were sometimes bound in covers made from glued-together pieces of papyrus, trash pages from worn-out books, thrown-away letters, out-of-date commercial documents, and so forth. This material can be painstakingly separated and read, providing valuable historical context for the text enclosed. When the covers of Nag Hammadi books were taken apart in this way, it turns out that the scraps of the papyrus in them sometimes contained dates, the latest of which is 348 CE. Some of that papyrus seems to have been originated in Christian monastery. There were ancient monasteries in the vicinity of Nag Hammadi, and some scholars are convinced that the Gnostic library found hidden in 1945 was once part of an Orthodox Christian monistic library. Others are skeptical, saying that the discarded papyrus used for books covers should just as well come from a community trash heap where monks and others threw scraps of paper away. But as it may, we can be sure that most of the Nag Hammadi books were copied and bound in the middle of the 4th century CE. The Berlin Gnostic Codex comes from the same period. We now have 4 copies of the secret book of John, 3 from Nag Hammadi, Egypt, and the 4th of the Berlin Gnostic Codex from an unknown place in Egypt. All are written in Coptic, but like other Nag Hammadi documents, they were originally written in Greek, as evidenced by many Greek words and remain untranslated by the Coptic manuscripts. Specialists have concluded that these 4 copies represent 3 different Coptic translations. They fall into 2 categories: a long version of the secret book of John, found in Nag Hammadi books 2 and 4, and a shorter version found in Nag Hammadi books 3 and in the Berlin Gnostic Codex. The difference is basically that the long version contains 2 sections that do not appear in the short versions: a detailed exposition of the creation of primordial Adam by many different demons, and 3-part poem of the providence of God journeying into this world. Apart from these, the longer and shorter versions generally agree on main points while differing in detail. This introduction is broken up into about 5 different sections, and to keep these videos shorter, we've decided to do each section separately. So the introduction alone is going to be a couple more videos at least. So, discussing this, the first part of the introduction, what we get most from this is how incredibly important the secret book of John is in context with the other Gnostic Gospels. Because with the secret book of John, you learn how to basically read the other Gnostic Gospels. Here in the beginning, we see that the secret book of John is a source. It is a host of other Gnostic texts, myths, and cosmic systems. We'll be getting into this later in this introduction. However, all of these books, these Gnostic books, are supposed to be taken allegorically. They are not meant to be taken literally. This is the mistake that the Christian church has done, and it's a more recent mistake than most people are aware of. It wasn't until the mid-1800s that the Christians started regarding these stories, these allegorical stories that are meant just to be taken in story format and not to be taken literally. It wasn't until the mid-1800s 1800s that the Christians started taking these Bible stories like Adam and Eve and the Tower of Babel and all these other stories that couldn't possibly have happened. They're taking them literally now, and that's a more recent development, but we'll be getting into that later. I just wanted to point out that it says here Gnostic texts, myths, cosmic systems. I just wanted to point out that most of what we know to be true, what we are supposed to be regarding as true, as even within these Gnostic traditions, are myths. They're not to be taken literally.
The secret book of John tells the story of the de-evolution of God from perfect oneness to imprisonment in the material world. As I have said many times before in previous videos in Entropy 2, we are God, and we have de-evolved and fallen to this prison. In the story, Sophia falls from the pleroma into the material world, and so we are sparks of Sophia, and our goal is to ascend back into heaven.
The hardest part about that is to throw off all this conditioning that we've all been under this Christian construct conditioning that tells us that we are not God, that we are servants of this entity that they call Father, which it's their Father, all right, but it's not the true Father, so to speak.
In the Gnostic Gospels, you'll find that there's a lesser god called the Demiurge, and his angels are called archons, and so they keep us in prison in this material world. Which
we'll be getting into more detail into this with the introduction and, of course, the actual text of the secret book of John. I wanted to also point out here the very interesting part where it says in the beginning here, if you look at some of the sections, it is Christian. In others, it's a version of Platonic philosophy, as in Platonism, as in Greek. Frequently, it is a book of Jewish commentary on Moses' Torah. It is all of these in which the authorities of Orthodoxy and Christianity, Platonism, and Judaism totally rejected. It is the foundation of something else, something supported by historical tripod of Christianity. How interesting it is that we just finished doing a video about Superman and how in this allegory we're using as a metaphor for the Superman becoming a new thing, coming out of the Abrahamic religions, and in this case coming out of Platonism as well, Greek religion, and becoming this new dynamic force, this new dynamic religion, this new this Gnosticism that is something that is inherent within all of us. It's part of who we are.
It's the seed of truth that's coming out, that's rising up.
And it's interesting that it's only been happening as the beginning of this introduction talks about since really 1945. The rest of the introduction is pretty obvious. It's just giving you the context from which these books have come from, and the history of the finding of the books themselves. So that's the beginning of the introduction, and we will be delving even more into this, of course, soon. And we hope that we can all get participants. We all participate in the discussion here about this book, because this is really a foundational book of the Gnostic belief system.
So this is Lucifera signing out.
And this is Entropy. We will see you again soon. Goodbye.